Good afternoon. Good afternoon, LSU faculty, senators, and guests. It's 3 p.m. on a remarkably refreshing day in Louisiana, and we have a very ambitious agenda ahead of us. So during this, our last meeting of the academic year. So let's begin. First off, we take roll by means of sign-in. If you are a guest, please message Ms. Knoll directly with your name so that your presence can be recorded. Additionally, those senators who are present today, please make sure your moniker on your Zoom identity also is related to your LSU identity so that we know who is present. Next up, the alternates. Robert Hogan for Daniel Tyrone, Matt Hyatt for Nan Walker, Ann Tracy Quirk, and Mike Russo for John Miles. Are there any others today? Any other alternates today? I remind you, there are no proxies. As an alternate, you have one vote. Okay, hearing none. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Is there something I need to address? Okay. We have no public comments on the agenda at this time. So next up, consideration of the March 17 minutes. So if there are any substantive comments, please let us know now. If they are, on the other hand, minor corrections, typographical errors, and or grammatical errors, please send those to Ms. Knoll. So barring any substantive changes, may I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
All right, thank you, Professor Henninger. Second? And
Second from Pam.
Okay, very good. Is there anyone opposed to accepting the minutes? All right. Well, minutes are accepted. I'll move on to our my last president's report of the year. Okay. I'll endeavor to keep this report brief and touch upon a multitude of activities. Is there a hand raised?
Yeah, Professor Henninger.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I did have a motion to rearrange the agenda slightly, and I didn't know when was the appropriate time to make such a motion.
Right. Well, let's get started, and we can rearrange. We will ensure that the elections are held. They will take priority over other. We do understand that you have to leave at a specific time, and I will keep that in mind as we go through our agenda.
Okay, appreciate that. I just want the new business to get the attention that it needs.
Absolutely, understood. Okay, here we go. I will try to touch upon a multitude of activities that have transpired during the recent crunch, compression, conglomeration of conundrums, or otherwise a naturally busy time of year. First up, the Faculty Senate Executive Committee met with Chairperson Damp via Zoom, that is Chairperson of the Board of Supervisors, and we met with him via Zoom earlier in the month. Unfortunately, due to his extremely full schedule, he was only able to meet with us while driving. The visit was polite and pleasant, but a bit distracting due to the unfortunate presence of highway traffic, a situation that frequently occurs while driving on highways, byways, and other roadways. Chairperson Damp did express his commitment to meeting with faculty leadership by way of the Council of Faculty Advisors during regularly scheduled meetings of the Board of Supervisors. Despite the fact that there is a student member on the Board of Supervisors, as I've previously mentioned, the chairperson did not seem to be supportive of a faculty member serving on the board in any capacity. Hopefully, future interactions with the Council of Faculty Advisors will help to convince him and the rest of the board otherwise. Other points shared with the Council of Faculty Advisors on behalf of the LSU system faculty at the last Board of Supervisors meetings are as follows. Be aware they have been modified from their original presentation for brevity. First up, the faculty request equal opportunity to message the LSU community. They request that the administration work with faculty leadership to establish a mechanism for strategic communications from faculty to the LSU community, similar to what is currently in place for the administration. Faculty are horrified and embarrassed by the ongoing allegations, investigations, and associated negative publicity, and wanted to make it abundantly clear that these administrative tribulations are not to be associated with faculty in any way. What is demoralizing to faculty, and offensive in the worst way, is that LSU is cast so negatively before the nation because of actions by agents on which we have no control or say. The faculty insists that a faculty voice be added to the LSU Board of Supervisors. It's far past time. From the Faculty Senate, a resolution was passed this week, from the Staff Senate, a resolution was passed this week that included recommendations for the LSU Title IX office and included familiar declarations. Specifically, that members of the Board of Supervisors should be more representative of LSU staff and should include staff representation in some form. The resolution passed yesterday and has, like I said, been shared with our senators. The Faculty Senate Executive Committee supports the efforts of the Staff Senate. Some uplifting news from CFO Donna Torres. Legislators appear to be very supportive of faculty raises. Excellent news indeed. In terms of campus safety, a budget is in the works to improve campus lighting. There are dark and dangerous parts of campus that have raised concerns for years. The minimum hourly wage for our custodians will increase to $10 an hour. This is on a result of work, but again, by CFO Donna Torres. Unfortunately, the wailing about work for your day or work day has diminished but not ceased. However, CFO Torres did see that changes were implemented to facilitate uploading of receipts to the expense line to which they correspond. This is, instead of generating a separate receipt document, an action that took additional and apparently unnecessary time and effort. We are glad that CFO Torres agreed with the logic of using the software functions that were in place to reduce workload, and she made it happen. More news, as you know, there was great consternation with the creation, distribution, and apparent plans for enforcement of PM 16, protection of minors participating in university programs. However, it appeared that the horse ran off without the cart in this case, as there were no plans for implementation. CFO Torres circled back and reinvigorated implementation plans that should be forthcoming in the near future. The Faculty Senate Executive Committee also learned that the cost of tuition remission, as described in Resolution 1907, is currently being assessed by Mr. Tommy Smith. I believe the Budget and Planning Committee is spearheading those efforts. And finally, maternity coverage for dependents covered by LSU First will be included in the upcoming plan negotiations. So, all good news from our CFO Torres. From VP Matthew Lee and CIO Craig Woolley, the Student Information System procurement process is underway. A product is expected to be selected by early summer, and then we'll enter a 2 to 3 year implementation phase by midsummer. Let's hope it makes it before the lights go out on our existing mainframe for once and for all. Additional news from Human Resource Management. It seems that an outside vendor will be selected to do an in-depth study of pay inequities throughout the university. That is for all job descriptions. Great news. Hats off to the University Council on Gender Equity that started this pebble rolling down the monstrous hill some 6 or 7 years back. We look forward to equal pay for equal work throughout our LSU. Next, you have probably heard or were unfortunately saw the vile, egregious assault that occurred during a recent Zoom forum for Asian American, and Pacific Islander voices. The attack occurred at the end of a highly attended, thoughtful, and enlightening forum. To those who would disrespect and attempt to intimidate our LSU community members, you are shameful imposters who have no place among us. We members of the Faculty Senate Executive Committee extend our deepest sympathies to those who experienced the attack, and we are united in our support of our LSU colleagues, regardless of personal characteristics, beliefs, or culture. When any segment of our community is attacked, we are all attacked. The FSCC puts forth that the appropriate authorities make every effort to identify those responsible and ensure that they experiences consequences for the attack. Next, many of you were surprised, as was I, at the announcement that COVID vaccinations will not be required to attend in-person classes at our LSU. I'm afraid that I also became aware of this decision when it appeared in the press and on social media. Faculty leadership had no notice or role in the decision. There is a resolution for consideration today that will likely stimulate more discussion on the topic. And in another bit of confusion, many of you reached out about what may have been a blip in communication about return to in-person instruction in the fall. As far as I know, based on communication with the Office of Academic Affairs, the plan is to return to face-to-face instruction for fall semester 2021. Of course, as we all know, it's a mad world out there. As you will remember from about 1 year ago, the horizon can flip a full 180 in the blink of an eye. However, once more, as I understand it, the plan is for face-to-face instruction in fall 2021, similar to that of fall 2019. The deliberations of the Presidential Search Committee were broadcast live yesterday. To summarize, there were 23 candidates who submitted their materials for consideration and who were named publicly. Of the 23, 2, I think, were women. A total of 8 were selected for further consideration, including 1 woman. Well, in any case, the interviews will be broadcast live, at least in part, and finalists selected by the end of this month. As you heard, our interim president, Galligan, formally removed himself from consideration for LSU president and chancellor. From my perspective, he has been a commendable leader during a tenure filled with social and political unrest, superimposed on a global pandemic and including public exposure of administrative behaviors that endangered our students. He was held personally accountable for many things that simply cannot rightfully be attributed to him. In fact, it was in part his actions that exposed the dark recesses that hid nefarious behaviors. And through it all, he has not wavered in his allegiance and support of our faculty or his commitment to our LSU community. No leader can fully address every imaginable need of an expansive, dynamic community like ours. I hope that you too will acknowledge the commendable leadership of our interim president, Tom Galligan. All right, and as you know, today is Earth Day. Please take care of our mother, Earth that is. She's the only one we have. As always, I conclude with thank you, our LSU faculty. You pick up and carry on despite extremely trying circumstances, sadness, and fatigue. You engage in dynamic but not hostile debate and remain firm on issues that are important to you. You stand up for your students and colleagues and represent beacons in a stormy reality for more than you know. Please continue to protect and virtually embrace our LSU citizens and remind each other that no one should ever feel isolated or unwelcome. We are a community that must continue to learn, advance, and grow in acceptance of our members. Again, I thank you. Remain fierce for the faculty. And with that, I'll conclude my president's report and take any questions.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Who made the decision that the classes could start without vaccination in the fall?
I don't know, Professor Lane. I don't know who made that decision. I asked, and I have not received an answer, but I will pursue it. Additional questions?
Yes, President Lopez, Theta Daniels Race here from College of Engineering. I see my moniker is abbreviated, so the whole name, I'll say it. Yes, I don't know if this would be more appropriate under the, I think we're going to talk about synchronous and asynchronous classes, but my concern with returning to in-person classes has to do with, are we going to still have, as we did have, a procedure for, or actually, number one, a requirement that students wear a mask while in class, unless, the state changes that, but that the students must wear a mask. And if the student refuses to wear a mask, we had a whole procedure. You ask the class, then you can ask the individual, then you can ask the individual to leave. And, last resort was call LSU police, have them take the individual out and dismiss the class, was my understanding of the procedure. Will there be such a procedure, or can there be in the fall? If there's been any discussion on that, please.
This is a very good question and an issue that I certainly raised as of this Wednesday. We intend to pursue that as we move forward. There are many questions that are still unanswered. Plans are in progress. I know they are. And so absolutely, I will keep everyone informed to the best of my ability over the summer so we can all plan accordingly.
Thank you. I would say in the very least, wearing a mask, given that, as I understand, immunizations will not be required because we're still under the federal emergency policy for immunizations. But
absolutely, absolutely. These are all issues that I raised at a very recent meeting. I assure you, they have been raised and they will continue to be.
Thank you.
Robert Cook here. This emergency release of the vaccine that's been done seems to be going away, and it will be done by the normal path by the time fall comes in. Now, if the US government, the federal government, says this is along the same as the other vaccine LSU requires, I don't see how LSU can argue that students cannot have this vaccine. And I think by the time in midsummer, this will not be an emergency, any emergency allowance.
Yes, I think we'll have time for this discussion. Yes, I agree. Let's hold these thoughts for just a little bit longer, and we'll bring them up during discussion of the upcoming resolution. Any additional questions? All right. Well, I'm sorry, I forgot your current Senior Vice Provost or Executive Vice Provost and current Director of the Title IX and Diversity Office has graciously agreed to present the recent activities and current plans for that office. And so thank you very much. Vice Provost, Senior Vice Provost, I'm sorry. Professor Cassidy, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mandy. I know it's a little confusing to me too. I'm a little schizophrenic. I keep forgetting who I am these days. But thank you for inviting me to come. I'm going to share my screen. And let me turn it on here. Okay, does that look right to everybody? Is that a full screen PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Jane Cassidy, as I think I know many of you from my former position as Senior Vice Provost. Right now, I'm serving as Interim Vice President of the new Office of Civil Rights and Title IX. This is an office that the President started in the middle of March. Our first day officially in office was March 17th. And we are tasked with working through the recommendations of the Husch-Blackwell report. And then the mission of our office is to prevent discrimination and support those who have been discriminated against, those who are for unprotected classes. So Title IX is what we've been working on mostly because of the Husch-Blackwell report, but we eventually will have a civil rights component to our office as well. So I thought, Mandy asked me to give you just a quick overview of what we have been doing. And you may remember, if you have looked at the report, that there were 18 recommendations. We have broken that down into 47 action items that we've been working on. And I am going to take you through those, but rather than bore you with the 18, I've grouped them together in 5 thematic areas. And so we will go through them that way. I think it will make sense to you. So the first theme is office operations, and those were recommendations 1, 2, 3, and 4. They were at the beginning of the report and the list of recommendations because there's nothing that we can do without people. Prior to this, prior to May 17th, it was a very small office. We are still very small, but we are going to hire some people. We're in the process of doing that. So the accomplishments that we have made in the last month is that an interim vice president was hired. That's me. The reporting lines have changed. Prior to March 17th, the Title IX office reported to General Counsel, and there's a problem there because General Counsel looks for things that are risky to the university and tries to avoid it, whereas many of the things that come through our office do present risk to the university. So conflict of interest, we now report directly to the president. My line reports to the president and Title IX reports to me. So we've extricated ourselves from there. There are 4 positions that we have advertised right now. We interviewed this week for an executive assistant to the vice president. We have 2 excellent candidates, and I'll make an offer on Monday. Next week, we will be interviewing folks for a case manager position. And the following week, we will interview people for an investigator position, an additional investigator position. And we also have we are going to start, probably tomorrow, it will be advertised for a Title IX coordinator. Jenny Stewart, many of you know, she moved from being the Title IX coordinator. Well, let me back up for a second. Jenny had 3 positions. She was Title IX coordinator, she was the ADA coordinator, and she was responsible for the Clery report. Those are 3 full-time jobs. And so when I came into the office, Jenny and I talked, and I think her skills align really well with the ADA coordinator. So she has moved into that position. We have an interim Title IX coordinator who we have hired. It's a consultant external from LSU. He is somebody who has significant experience in the Title IX realm and in student advocacy and accountability. He was formerly president of ATICSA, which is the national organization for Title IX. And he's been here this week as his first week, and he's been a great help. He's a policy guy, and so he's going to help us with everything that's going on. But anyway, in the meantime, we're going to advertise for a Title IX coordinator, and that person will be in office within 90 days because that's our contract with Daniel Swinton, who's the guy in there. We also have, you may have heard of Lighthouse, which is a support unit for victims of sexual and domestic violence that's housed within the Student Health Center. Previous to March 17th, the woman who was in charge of that, Susan Barris, she was the office was a subset of the wellness group in Student Health Center. We've elevated it now to its own group. It's now the program, the Lighthouse program, and Susan is full-time in that director position, as well as she has a full-time staff member who supports her in that. There has been talk also of expanding that office. The other thing is our office has moved to Himes Hall. We're in the quad where we are in the old Women and Gender Studies suite. We had been actually the university had been renovating some space over in Hatcher Hall for Women and Gender Studies prior to us even being named. And they moved out right around the beginning of April, and we did a quick cleanup of the space here, and we moved in April 5th, I think. But anyway, so now used to be at UAB, hard to find, not on the beaten path. We're now right in the quad. And so we're very, very happy with that. You don't need to look at this quickly. I mean, you don't need to look at this carefully, but you can see here was the old organization chart, which had 2 people reporting to General Counsel. Here is the proposed organization chart. If we hire all of these people and fill all of these positions, we will now be in line with what other universities who are about our size do and have to handle the number of students and faculty and and students that we have. This office also serves all 9 campuses. There are Title IX coordinators on those campuses, but they are usually part-time people, and so they rely heavily on our office. Our investigator investigates all of the cases at all the other campuses. Coming up in the future, well, May 20th, I think the 3 groups of people that we're interviewing right now, we hope to have everybody in place by May 20th, a Title IX coordinator by July 15th. And I'm hoping that there's somebody for my position by January 1st, 2020. They're putting together a search committee right now, and they're hiring a search firm to do a national search. And I will not be a candidate for that job. So the second theme is process. We have a lot of work to do here, but we have made some progress. There are recommendations 13, 14, and 15 that deal with this. We have established a timeline for discrimination cases. Right now, that timeline, what we have etched out is about 90 days from when somebody makes a report to when an appeal is finished. We've added an appeal, I think it says right here. I don't know if that seems long or short to you. What I can tell you after being here for a month is there is no way to quantify the number of days that these cases take. Sometimes they take a week or 2 weeks. If you have a complainant and a respondent who both get back to you and come in and meet, and it's a very small, it's just the 2 of them and all of that, it can really go quite quickly. Some of the complex cases that were in the Husch Blackwell report, those are cases that would take months to finish, many more than the 3 months that we have outlined in our timeline. The reason being is that sometimes people get lawyers, and if they get a lawyer as part of the process, now you have to wait to interview them until the lawyer's free. And I can tell you that sometimes that takes a month or so before they can get in with their lawyer. Everybody has to show up for their meetings, and that doesn't always happen. So in any event, most of the reasons why we would go over the 90 days is not due to anything that our office would be doing inappropriately or inaccurately. Much of it would be just the circumstance of trying to get people who have been assaulted to come and meet, and to get witnesses willing to come and meet, and all of that. But we do have a process that we're trying to stick to that will be no more than 90 days. The next checkpoint is a process for a complaint. We now have a mechanism for people to complain if our office doesn't handle things appropriately. There's an appeal process. Restorative justice is a process that's currently in use. Was mentioned in the report. And this is rather than going to a hearing panel, sometimes complainants don't really want to punish somebody. They really just want to work things out and get peace with it outside of the judicial process. And so that's what restorative justice does. You work with somebody who is trained in this and try to get both parties to accept what happened, to talk through why it happened, and to sometimes there are sanctions that are in there, but anyway, going on their merry way. There is now a sanction for failure to report up, and the sanction is up to termination in PM 73. So right now, I spent all morning this morning and all morning yesterday morning down at the legislature. There are a number of bills that are in progress right now that are going to require this. So we will come back to Faculty Senate once that has been solidified, to make sure that you are aware of that, and we will do a big campaign on it. But if you are a mandatory reporter, which probably just about everybody on this meeting is a mandatory reporter, and you know of an instance, or you've either witnessed or somebody discloses to you an instance of sexual assault or violence, you must report it up to the Title IX coordinator. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. If you fail to do so, then you can be terminated for your because you didn't do that. So again, that's going to be state law, and we will amend PM 73 once we find out what the law says, and we will follow state law on that. Things coming up with regard to process, there's a new civil rights and Title IX policy that will describe the reporting process and define who a mandatory reporter is, and provide the sanctions for employees who fail to report. That will be done by July 15th. That is one of the things that is on our consultant's radar to help draft that. What we're thinking about doing is drafting that policy and then putting together a group of faculty, staff, and students to look to serve as a committee to edit and approve. You know, I mean, take as long as we want, but we need to start with something rather than starting with a blank page. So, second thing is presumptively appropriate sanctions for students who are found responsible for sexual misconduct. That will be part of the policy. And so what that will be are suggested sanctions for different types of behavioral issues that have come up with regard to sexual misconduct. There are confidential advisors on campus. We need to make sure that we know who they are. We need to make sure that they're trained and their names need to be on our website. We are already working on that right now. Some of you may think you're a confidential advisor. You might be a confidential advisor. There are a very small number of people who by policy are confidential advisors, and that includes people in the student health center, doctors, it includes counselors on campus. It does not include any faculty member who does not know that they're a confidential advisor. So again, we will be naming those people and training them by July 15th. Training and education, there are 3 recommendations on that. Very quickly on this, all athletics appointees are required to make reports of sexual discrimination of students directly to the Title IX coordinator. That was not in place before, which is why we got into some of the trouble we got into. There is a contract that's been established between STAR and athletics for education and training. We also have one for the campus with STAR. They have already provided their first educational session on sexual misconduct to members of the LSU football team. There are more to come. And the student athletes themselves have joined a group called Step Up, and they are, this is a group that advocates for survivors of sexual assault, and they are establishing themselves a bystander intervention program. What do you do if you know or see about it? How do you help the survivors? Coming up, the annual training that everybody has to take for sexual assault Title IX. We are going to completely change that. We're going to make it less about the law and reading the law and more about what do you do and how do you do and where do you find the resources. STAR is helping us with that. That will be in place August 15th, and that will be what you will take, what we all will take in the fall prior to December 31st. The My Student Body training for new students is being looked at and revised. And the folks who do Title IX work, which are the people in my office, the new people that are coming in, people in student advocacy and accountability, and the police department, we will have a training first week in June in dealing with sexual assault and violence. The third theme, we weren't doing a great job on our record keeping and reporting. So we have an MOU that's now established with the LSU PD that's been required. We had a hard time getting it through, but it's done now, and we are working on all cylinders with them. We are assessing our own training sessions now as we go out and do them. You can see this is recommendation 5, 6, 9, and 17 deal with record keeping and reporting. Coming up, we are going to be required by law, by state law, to have quarterly reports to the president, although what I heard this morning is these quarterly reports might also have to be online, which will be fine with us. And it will report the number of cases and how long those cases took, where they stand, what the resolution was. And so we will do those March 31st, June 30th, September 30th, and December 30th. The final, there's a format for annual reporting that we are required to do. This one is required to be on our website. And so we're starting to gather ideas about what that should include and how it should be formatted. Maxient is what we use for student advocacy, and we have to train all of our folks in that. They already kind of use it, but they're not using it to its full extent. I liken it to Workday. A lot of people know how to do a little bit in Workday, but Workday does a lot for us. And so Maxient is the same way, people using just a small part of it. And then we're just going to have a survey in our office. Anybody who interacts with our office, we're going to ask them to complete a survey if they want to, just let us know how we're doing. So that will go into effect June 1st. Communication and accountability. This is the last of the 5 themes. We now have an easy to use and easy to locate website for reporting. And I'm going to see if this will let me get into it from here. Oh, good, it's going to go. So if you go to lsu.edu/support, this is where you come. And right here, the very first thing is to report an incident. If you click on that, you have 2 places that you can choose to report. If a student is reporting, or if it is about a student, then you should do it through the student portal. So just because you're a faculty member doesn't mean you go to the reporting. If it's about a student, then you go through the student reporting, and that takes you directly to the form to fill out. So that's www.lsu.edu support. If you want to know the progress that we're making on our 47, on the 18 recommendations and the 47 action items, if you go to lsu.edu/Title IX-review. Here it comes. Are you seeing that? Okay.
No, we can't.
All right, that's coming up at a different place.
If you send these slides to
Sure.
Susanna,
Sure. Yeah.
everyone can act.
Yeah, I'm sorry that this one isn't showing, but anyway, and we also have a new website for the Office of Civil Rights and Title IX. We have a tracker that keeps me on track with what we're doing, and we are trying to be very clear with a lot of communication to the campus about how to report. And my last slide is projected timeline. Again, the policy will be July 15th. Students are also going to have a button on a thing on their Navigate app, which is how they register for meetings with their advisor. They're also going to have a button on that same app where they can register to come and talk to somebody in our office. So that is the end of this very quick review.
We appreciate that this is a very small window for a tremendous amount of information. And we're wondering if we can get a copy of your slides or some form of them, and we can distribute them to faculty. I can see this is a tremendous amount of work that has already been accomplished. So sincere congratulations. Are there any very quick questions for Professor Cassidy?
Yes, do all of these changes also apply to those of us who have a major appointment to the LSU Ag Center? So will this be part of the Ag Center's? Okay.
Yes, it's system-wide.
There's a question. It looks like the new LSU.edu/support reporting system is the same as the LSU CARES reporting system. Can we use either?
No, reporting to CARES is not the same as reporting to Title IX. So it must be reported. The Title IX coordinator will not get the case if it doesn't go through the Title IX portal. So it is not the same, although there is overlap. Obviously, anybody who's making a Title IX claim is probably within the CARES system as well, but it must be reported as a Title IX claim in order to be heard by our office.
Additional questions?
I have one quick question.
Yes.
If there is a behavior that's occurred in the recent past, and as a result of bad behavior by faculty, a student has left the country to return home, should we go ahead and report that behavior?
Yes, report everything.
Yes, ma'am.
There might not be anything that we can do about it, but one of the things I've learned just in the last month, I mean, as a faculty member, I didn't know, believe me, I didn't know anything about any of this. That many people are repeat offenders, and that shouldn't surprise anybody. And so we need the name in the system. And even if we can't do anything about that one, should they offend again, there would be a track record, so to speak, of reports. And that will have an effect on the sanctions.
Actually, there is already rumors circulating about continued behavior by this particular professor with other students here. So you're exactly right.
Yes, so report everything. You know, the one thing, if I could leave you with anything, don't, if you even think that it has something to do with Title IX, just report it. Let the people who really know what the bar is and how to take care of all this, because even if it's not a Title IX claim, even if it doesn't meet the bar to be a Title IX claim, we can still get that student resources. And that's the important thing. If we've got students who are hurting, we need to take care of them. And that has not happened in the past.
I'll be seeing you soon.
Great. And Mandy, I could just say, I will certainly make this PowerPoint available. I'll send it to Suzanne right now. But everybody, please understand that as of Monday, well, actually as of Wednesday next week, there are going to be new things that we've accomplished on this. So this is effective today, the 22nd. It won't be, there'll be more things that are added as accomplishments in the weeks to come, but I will send this out to you this afternoon.
Okay, I think we have time for one more very, very quick question. I know, I knew that this would be an important topic, and I did ask Professor Cassidy really at the very last minute to come present. Professor Ledet, one quick question.
A question, or really a comment. The College of Science did a training about a month ago. And in that training, I'm pretty sure that they had indicated that a report to LSU Cares was sufficient, or that the report would make it to Title IX office if we went through LSU Cares. But from what I've heard here, that's not the case. So I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the Title IX coordinator sits on the CARES team, or somebody from our office sits on the CARES team. The ball could easily get dropped if it doesn't go through our portal. And somebody might forget to put it into our portal. So I will follow up with the College of Science and make sure our message, you know, we have a little bit of problem with communication around here in lots of ways. And so we will make sure that everybody knows it must go through the Title IX portal.
Okay, and the workshop was sponsored by the College of Science, but it was actually Lighthouse that did the workshop.
Okay.
And I think STAR. So I just want to make sure the correct information gets out to faculty members.
Excellent. Thank you for telling me that. We will all be on the same page.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, we're forwarding, I can't see the top message. We're forwarding the question from Professor Ringelman to Professor Cassidy. So for her information. And then Professor King wants to know why there's no faculty on the Athletic Oversight Committee. Why there are no faculty on the Athletic Oversight Committee.
I'm not sure, but I'll ask.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Professor Cassidy, thank you for all you're doing for us. I know this has been a tremendous amount of work. You came on the last minute, you squeezed a tremendous amount of work into an impossibly small time frame. So yes, we'll share your slides and any additional questions that come forward, we'll forward to you. All right, we'll move on then. Just a short topic. Professor Hopkins has some information on a standardized template for syllabi. This was at the request of faculty and out of concern, I think, because faculty are not sure what should, what shouldn't be included on the syllabus. They don't want to get caught without something that they're supposed to have. And many have requested some sort of template or guideline or something. So again, Professor Hopkins has, and his committee, the CNC committee, have generated, I think, I'm not sure where the template came from. It's been around for a while. So I'll cede to you, Professor Hopkins, to go over what you have.
Okay, thank you. This syllabus was generated by the Courses and Curriculum Committee in response to the requirement that new courses and new curricula need to submit syllabi to accompany the new proposal. So we put together a general syllabus, which is on the registrar's website. It's under the courses and curricula information on the registrar's website. And it has the basic components that we look for in evaluating proposals when they come through the courses and curricula committee. We didn't create this syllabus in particular for the general faculty. I think we would probably like to look it over again and make some modifications, maybe in collaboration with the faculty senate, if we're going to use this for the general faculty. But basically, the items that we require are listed here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the office, the contact information, the office hours, and there's been some discussion about what office hours need to be. And it turns out that according to the faculty handbook, office hours should be scheduled. So it isn't really sufficient, according to the faculty handbook, to just say, here's my contact information, contact me for office hours, but they should be regularly scheduled office hours at times that students are available. In addition, there should be some outreach, according to the handbook, where faculty say by appointment is also possible, because there are many instances where students cannot make office hours, and there should be an option from the faculty member to have a way a student could contact and ask for by appointment an office hour. Then there is some listing of what the course topics will be. We don't dictate to the faculty member exactly what that has to be. Everybody's in charge of their own course and would know what information would be appropriate. But some type of listing of what the topics are week by week, in addition to planned examinations and other assignments that are listed by due dates. A grading scheme, which is a plus minus scale, which is listed very clearly. There is a recommendation by the registrar on what that grading scale should be, but we don't have any university agreement as to exactly what it has to be. But it has to be there in detail for this particular course, what that grading scale would be. Now, in addition, there needs to be a detailed list of what the graded activities are in the course. And so that means two things. First of all, a list of all of the components that go into the grade, so that there isn't any doubt in the student's mind about what needs to be done to accomplish a certain grade. But in addition to that, a detailed description about what the activities will be. So for most cases, people are pretty familiar with what an exam is, and maybe that doesn't need to be so detailed. But the homework component, what exactly is that? How are we going to do the homework? Is it on a website somewhere? Is it going to be on Moodle? How is it going to count? And we like to see that a faculty member would give a student some indication of what the time requirement would be. How much time is it going to take me? Is it going to take me maybe it's going to be 5 hours a week, and that would be listed as part of the syllabus, so that the student begins to get a feeling for how much time is going to be required to do well in a particular course. Then, if there is some kind of a project, to give some details to the student about what that project is going to be. Is it going to be in groups? Is it going to be a group grade? Is it going to be done in groups, but an individual grade will be depending on a particular student's contribution to the group project? But all of the details should be listed, and there should again be some kind of an estimate on the faculty's part of how much effort it will take. So this, maybe it's done over a 3-week period. It could be that there are steps involved in the process where in the plan that we talked about over here, that maybe in week 3, in that week that you have to have a proposal about what the title of your project will be. And then later on in week 4, maybe the first draft of the project and so on. So all of that information should be listed in the project. So a student has an idea of how much time is involved and all of the items that would be necessary. If it is a project that is a group project, courses and curricula require that there is some kind of a contract that is given by the faculty member that the student has to sign to say, I agree to live by this particular arrangement for how the grading will be determined, because otherwise you wind up with dicey problems where one student's not pulling his weight. And we like to see all of those things thought through in advance. There are other graded components, but again, the key points are really just to tell the student how the participation grade will be computed. In some cases, it could be given by a formula. This is a mathematical equation that from which the grading is going to be determined. If the faculty member is going to do it by judgment of the participation of the student, then that could be written here. So again, we're not telling any faculty member, you have to do it this way, but just giving some guidance about, provide the details, and you are the expert, so you decide what those details are going to be. Just make sure that you lay them out so that the student can understand. So we are recommending that the student has enough information so that they could understand how the grading is going to be done and what the expectations are. And then finally, the syllabus should contain a number of statements that exist around the university that can be cut and pasted. The expectation statement, which is basically the federal credit hour statement, the LSU Student Code of Conduct. We get into a lot of problems in the proposals that we review where faculty want to write down in their own words what all of the rules of Student Code of Conduct will be. And a lot of times there are errors made where a faculty member will say something like, if you are caught cheating on this assignment, you will get an F. Or if it's not turned in on time, then you will get a 0. None of which is true because, of course, if there is cheating involved, it has to go through the proper agencies at LSU, and they decide what the penalties will be, not the faculty member. Same thing with excused absences. We have a carefully laid out PS 22, which describes what the excused absences are. So it shouldn't be that the faculty makes statements in the syllabus that say, if you don't do this, this will be the penalty, but rather to copy the link to PS 22 in the syllabus and say, this is how we're going to operate if you qualify for one of these excused absences. According to PS 22, then we will handle that in the course accordingly. The statement for disabilities, and then there are other statements for the general education, as well as statements that would apply to CXC courses, and also academic affairs has a statement that they like to be in the syllabus for telling the students how they can succeed academically. So these are the basic components that we have put in the syllabus. Again, they are not telling faculty, you must do it this way, but just give guidance about the components that should be in the syllabus and the proper details so that the student could figure out how to navigate the course. So that is the syllabus. It's currently on the registrar's website. And if the Faculty Senate would like, we could work with the Faculty Senate to modify it for use as for the general faculty.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Hopkins. Are there any questions? Okay, Professor Hopkins, if you can share this with Ms. Knoll, we will send a copy out to the faculty senators, and we'll also include the link.
Okay, I will do that.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we have a lot to cover, and we're being a little bit flexible with our schedule. So we plan, current plan is to move on to new business, which would be our resolution, new business, which would be our resolution. So we have 3 resolutions for consideration today. Is there any opposition to moving to the resolutions? Okay, I see none. All right, so the first resolution for our consideration, you've received all 3, is the resolution 21-03, a continued vote of no confidence in the LSU Board of Supervisors. This is sponsored by the Faculty Senate Executive Committee and Professors Kevin Cope and James Robinson, who is a professor at UNIF. All right. Hearing no volunteers to read the resolution, well, I will do so. All right, whereas the Louisiana Constitution charges the Board of Supervisors of Louisiana State University and Agricultural and Mechanical College, LSU, with supervising and managing the institution's statewide agricultural programs and other programs administered through its system, and whereas the Board of Supervisors is invested by law with the authority to organize the university as necessary to achieve its mission of delivering instruction, conducting research, facilitating scholarly activity, and performing service and outreach to Louisiana. And whereas the faculty or faculty council is likewise charged with establishing curricula, fixing standards of instruction, determining requirements for degrees, and generally setting educational policy, subject to the authority of the board. And whereas the Board of Supervisors has not fulfilled its officially, as well as frequently stated goal of unifying the LSU campuses into a single efficient system, one LSU, a failure which continues to hinder communication and collaboration among the faculty, staff, and students on the LSU campuses, and which has created a confusing and inefficient non-system in which some administrators oversee all campuses and other administrators with similar titles only serve the A&M campus. And whereas athletic department personnel have not been retained but have escaped investigation despite documented evidence not only of the use of vulgar language, but also of a host of more serious violations of policies and best practices governing workplace behavior, including fostering sexism, indulging in racism, and regularly ignoring reports of sexual assault. And whereas the Board of Supervisors preemptorily and unadvisedly overruled the LSU A&M administration and LSU A&M faculty leaders by ordering that classes be canceled on the occasion of the 2019 championship football game, doing so with little warning and with wanton disregard for the academic mission of the university. And despite having known the date of the aforementioned game for 2 weeks, leaving faculty, staff, and students little time to plan for said closure or to compensate for the disturbance of classes. And whereas the previous university president was hired with no faculty input and with a completely closed search process with no sharing of information and no transparency until a lawsuit by local newspaper publishers compelled the naming of the candidates. And whereas the American Association of University Professors censure imposed on LSU for its egregious failure to adhere to appropriate academic freedom principles has never been addressed by the LSU Board of Supervisors. And whereas the LSU System Board of Supervisors has repeatedly stressed the importance of shared governance while hypocritically rebuffing continued requests to appoint faculty members who are not administrators to the Presidential Search Committee. And whereas the retirement system for faculty and staff at LSU, which is woefully underfunded and to which LSU contributions to individual accounts fall far below those of LSU's peers, has received no attention from the LSU Board of Supervisors, despite its severely adverse effects on the recruitment and retention of LSU faculty and staff members. And whereas the admirable, as well as longstanding aspirations for LSU to join the Association of American Universities and thereby be recognized as one of the top research universities in the United States, appear to have been forgotten by the habitually underinformed and negligent Board of Supervisors. And whereas the students in the LSU system have voting representation on the LSU Board of Supervisors, and therefore, be it resolved that the LSU Faculty Senate declares that it has no confidence in the LSU Board of Supervisors. Therefore, be it further resolved that the LSU Faculty Senate calls on the President and Board of Supervisors to treat this vote of no confidence as an opportunity for both structural and policy reforms that will restore the confidence of both the LSU community and the citizens of Louisiana in the governance of our venerated university. Therefore, be it further resolved that given the nature of the offenses that have exposed LSU to public scandal and recrimination, the first area to undergo reform shall be all policies and practices, including those of the board itself, that have proved injurious to students, faculty, and staff, and especially women, and to those of non-binary gender. Therefore, be it further resolved that the aforementioned reforms pertaining to the equal treatment of all genders will include the addressing of gender-based inequities in promotion, tenure, and other academic opportunities. Therefore, be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors, in recognition of the inadequacy of its policies with respect to quality of life in the LSU community, shall direct special attention to the improvement of salary benefits and health care for all employees, regardless of gender. Therefore, be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors shall take steps to improve the diversity of its membership with respect to both the familiar criteria of race, ethnicity, class, and gender, and also with respect to the diversity of vocations practiced by the board members. Therefore, be it further resolved that the Faculty Senate expects the board to take immediate action to promote the inclusion of faculty members on the board, and that it also create both formal and informal channels for a regular dialogue with the faculty. Therefore, be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors issue a clear and definitive statement declaring its support for faculty governance and for faculty involvement in the university decision-making process. Therefore, be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors should create a commission to draft a formal affirmation of LSU's commitment to academics and of the subordinate or auxiliary role played by athletics, and should also charge that commission with creating an implementation plan for the ideas expressed in that statement. Is there a motion to move this to discussion?
First and second.
All right. The resolution is open for discussion. Can you increase that? I can't see who's. Yeah. Okay, well, this is the first reading of the resolution.
Okay, can I say something? Or
Yes.
should I raise my hand? Oh,
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see it.
yeah. Can you see me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I suspect, there are a lot of whereases there, and I suspect that if someone agrees with 90% of them, is the idea that they would vote for it or against or abstain? I'm just trying to understand. I know you can vote either way, and even if you don't agree with all of them, but what's what's the expectation?
Well, I think the overall expectation is I think the overall goal is to increase the focus of the Board of Supervisors on academics. I can tell you that I sit through Board of Supervisors meetings. I'm there. I also give the Council of Faculty Advisors report on occasion. We share that responsibility.
I agree with that, yes.
And so we want to shift the attention. We've raised several times that there's an inordinate amount of focus on football among the Board of Supervisors and during the Board of Supervisors meetings. And we would rather be focused on academics and the faculty. We've also tried for the last 10, 15, or maybe 20 years to get a faculty member on the Board of Supervisors, or at least faculty advisors, and we've been unable to do so. So we wish to really shift the thinking of the Board of Supervisors to that of oversight of a top-tier research in a university that with a very large student body and the faculty that support this university.
Okay. All right, thank you, Manny. That's
Any additional questions or discussion? Okay, well, this is the first reading. So unless there's a motion to forego the second reading and vote on it now, it will be held over until the next meeting in August. Okay. The next resolution, let's see. Let's see, Professor Blanchard, I'm not sure who is reading it. Is it you?
Yes, ma'am, it is me. So may I start?
Yep.
Okay, this is a resolution for faculty compensation for thesis and dissertation credit hours. And I'm sponsoring it on behalf of the School of Education faculty and the rest of us at the university. Whereas faculty provide intensive instruction and customized individual mentoring to graduate students pursuing a thesis or dissertation, whereas graduate students pay full tuition and fees for thesis and dissertation hours, whereas the faculty depends on, the university depends on faculty to graduate students who produce high quality publishable research as per Carnegie research status, whereas faculty investment in time per graduate student for either thesis or dissertation credit hours is commensurate to the time investment for coursework, whereas graduate advising is evaluated in annual faculty reports as part of teaching, whereas doctoral advising disproportionately impacts disciplines that are typically populated by women, persons of color, and other underrepresented groups in the role of faculty, creating workload disparities between these groups and majority group male colleagues in historically valued disciplines, whereas past practice within the last decade of not replacing retired and separated faculty in some units places an undue burden on remaining faculty to work with legacy graduate students from faculty who have left LSU. Therefore, let it be resolved that the LSU Faculty Senate requests LSU Academic Affairs to draft a compensation structure to fairly compensate faculty with students enrolled in 8,000 level thesis or 9,000 level dissertation hours.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm sorry we've hit a bit of a little hiccup. We're doing our best to live in the be here in the virtual realm. So we just have to back up just a little bit. There was a motion to vote on the first resolution that I'm sorry we didn't catch immediately by Senator Mason. Is there a second? Again, this is the first resolution that I wrote, that I read, resolution 21-03. Is there a second to forego the second reading and vote on it now?
I think you have a second.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you have the poll?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Ms. Knoll has a poll ready. Please vote now. You see the poll? No?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, they do. Okay. Do you see it?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Quorum for it. Done?
Done? Okay, final.
Yep, yes, move the vote to a resolution to a vote.
Okay. All right, the vote is to vote on the resolution. Is there a motion to approve resolution 21-03, continued vote of no confidence in the LSU Board of Supervisors?
Go ahead and vote.
Okay, please vote. Awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, you just get one vote. If you are an alternate, you have one vote. Mhm.
Passes.
Okay, the resolution passes. What is the
Yes,
the tally?
it's, it was 43 to 5 to 1.
43 in favor.
Mhm.
Can you just?
43 in favor, 5 against, 1 abstain.
Okay, did everyone hear that? All right, I apologize for the disruption. Is there a motion? Back to faculty compensation for thesis and dissertation credit hours. Is there a motion to move resolution 21-04 to discussion?
First and a second, please.
A first and a second. Okay, and a second. Okay, it's open for discussion.
I would like to say that I have 2 colleagues here as guests who did the research to back up this resolution that are present in the witnesses today. That's Dr. Joy Blanchard and Dr. Jen Curry. So I've asked them to be available to answer specific questions should they arise.
Whether honors thesis hours should be included.
Ah, that's a great point.
Okay, will you include that as a friendly amendment? Okay.
I think so. That would be the undergraduate honors thesis hours. Yes.
Robert Cook here. I'm not exactly sure about the second to last whereas. I'm in chemistry and I supervise a large number of graduate students and so forth. I know people in physics do, getting them to write papers, grants, and a large amount of advising is done in here. So I'm not exactly sure where that data has been come from, but I know some of my colleagues, actually male and female, have groups of 15 to 16 students. And it's not gender at all. And I think that's across the board a lot in science and engineering. So I agree with the whole concept, but I just wondering what data led to that statement, because to me, that's stunning, a statement at the moment from what I've seen on my side of the campus.
I understand. I'll start off by saying we're in a college that's primarily women, primarily, well, not the college level. Our school is staffed primarily by women. And so most of us are carrying very extreme loads, not by our choice, perhaps, but because of a lot of vacancies that have been left unfilled. So.
Hi, this is Joy Blanchard. I'm a guest at the invite of Pam Blanchard, no relation. So we did a query with the office, and I apologize, I forget the official name, but went through the registrar's office and they forwarded us to the, I believe it was institutional effectiveness. So we were able to see, and you are correct, the sciences do produce a large number of doctoral students. But when you look at the whole, for example, and we presented this resolution in recognition of the work that goes on across the university, whether someone graduates one person per decade or one person per semester. Just speaking of, because that's what first comes to my mind when I remembered, and we can forward the results of that query if needed, or Pam could share her screen. So our department, which is the School of Education, is divided into two: education, curriculum and instruction, and then leadership, research and counseling. ELRC, research and counseling, in any given semester or year, comprised more doctoral graduates than 4 colleges as a whole. And then in our research, we were able to list that 80% of the faculty members with graduate faculty status in that ELRC subdepartment are women, and equally a majority are persons of color. And so that's just one example. But once again, obviously we are recognizing and want to recognize the work of every single person who does work as it relates to thesis and dissertation credit hours, because like the resolution says, the university conveniently calls it service, but does charge the same amount of tuition and fees for those who enroll in those hours and will not graduate a student, and in some instances drop a student if they don't continuously enroll and pay for those credits. So we're kind of befuddled as to why that work is not recognized, simply because it's more convenient to label it service.
As I say, I'm all for supporting this heavily. I've argued this for quite a while, and I know that Isaiah Warner once brought this up and said that at Texas A&M, if you had a graduate student, then you got X amount of summer compensation for that. So I think this is something that's just lost. I agree that this is very, very important. It's given no credit at all.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and we did some legwork, and it was very cursory. Just going, I come from an institution that was unionized, and this type of work was compensated. So we did some research just with our own contacts, and came up with uncovered multiple structures that different universities below our Carnegie level, teaching institutions that either pay faculty or provide course releases for a certain number of doctoral or master's graduates.
Yeah, I don't want to convolute. I agree fully with this one. And I know somebody's brought up in the College of Science and I think engineering, yes, if you're research active, you teach 1 course per semester, but there's a large amount of pressure to bring in the dollars, federal, NSF, NIH, and so forth. And if you don't, then you go back to a full teaching load.
Okay, there's also a question about time compensation to graduate fees, because the fees are already outrageous.
I have a comment.
Okay, I think Professor Doran has his hand up first.
Yeah, thanks. I think this really points to the differences between the different disciplines and how graduate students and theses and stuff are handled. But I mean, in my case, in geology and geophysics, I pretty much decide how many graduate students I'm going to have, and they're often tied to research grants. And the only thing I need compensation for is advising them in the summertime during the school year. That's counted as part of my teaching in my annual review, not service. That's a confusing statement to me. We count it as teaching. And so I see it as part of my job during the academic year, but during the summer months, I continue advising grad students, and I'm not compensated for that.
Yeah, this came up during the discussion during the Faculty Senate Executive Committee had a look at the resolution, and this came up. It's very different across colleges. In some colleges that you don't receive teaching credit for the 9,000 and 8,000 level courses. It's not considered part of your teaching load. I have graduate students as well, and it should be part of my teaching load. So I think there was, in general, just a significant lack of consistency across the college, the university.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so hi, I'm Jen Curry. What ends up happening is you may have somebody who has 10, 15 doctoral students. They have the same teaching load as everybody else. I mean, you know, I put out a book this year and 3 articles. I submitted an NSF grant, and I am carrying a load of 10 doc students, but I have colleagues that have no doc students. Maybe they put out a couple of articles and they get to take off a day a week to go run their private practice and counseling and make, you know, $1,000 a week on the side. I could do that as well. And it's really a disparity that's causing a big problem. So if I choose to say, well, I don't want to do this service, I want to go do my private practice on the side, I'm just going to choose not to take doctoral students. Where are we going to be as a university if everybody says, I'm just going to choose not to do this service? That's a problem. So either we have to decide that we're going to consider it teaching. I really appreciate Dr. Doran's point on that this maybe needs to be built into teaching, or that there needs to be a compensation structure, because what ends up happening in our college is that then we have these, it tends to be the men in our college that say, well, look, I'm busy. I do all kinds of consulting. Yeah, I do too. I can go make $3,000 a day consulting, but I also take doctoral students. And that's the problem here. We have to have some equity in what we do, and walking away and saying, I'm going to do this instead because it's just service, so I don't have to do it, is not okay. So there has to either be equity in the structure or an expectation that it's teaching. And right now we don't have any of that. So it's really causing a problem within our college. And if it doesn't come from the university, then it just doesn't ever seem to happen in our department.
Yeah, I think Professor Van Jal is saying, well, it should be decided at the college, but I think Professor Van Jal, that's part of the problem, is that there's a lot of disparities among colleges and even between departments within colleges. And I think, and I don't mean to speak for you, Professor Blanchard, but I believe the goal is to have some kind of standardization, at least some minimal standardization.
I'd like to hear from Margaret Mary, if you don't mind. She has class at 4:30.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm also a guest of Dr. Pam Blanchard and a faculty member in the School of Education. And to Dr. Cook's question, Dr. Cook, our director, Dr. Neil Matthews, contacted Lisa Janson, who's the Associate Director of Institutional Research, and requested the 8,000 and 9,000 level courses that had been taught over the last 6 semesters. And so that is the source of some of our information. And as Dr. Joy Blanchard pointed out, we informally last November reached out to several peer institutions and several that were not peer institutions. So as Dr. Duran indicated, for example, at the University of Alabama, our peer, they also, if they take on, I believe it's 5 doctoral students that are at that 9,000 level, then that is a course release. At other institutions like Rowan, for every doctoral student that you graduate, there is a stipend, a monetary stipend. And so I think, Dr. Duran, you point out a really good point, that our disciplines are very different. We understand that. And so in the School of Ed, for example, we are producing teachers at all levels. We're producing teacher leaders, and we're producing educational leaders. And so given our agrarian calendar, so our local schools, PK-12, go to school 9 months out of the year, guess when we are working with a lot of our doctoral students? Not that we don't work with them during the year, but we have a preponderance that want to take hours during the summer. And so it precludes us, as Dr. Curry said, from sometimes pursuing our own graduate work. We feel the pressure of accepting students, and we don't necessarily tie students to our grants. And in the School of Education, our grants are never going to be as big as some of the grants that we see in other sciences. we don't have to outfit a laboratory because our laboratories are the PK-12 classrooms. So it's a very different paradigm, and we recognize that. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to say is the university realizes full tuition and the university realizes fees on 8,000, 9,000 level classes, but there is a inconsistency and a disparity between how faculty are compensated. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So this is the first reading. We won't unless there's a motion to move to forego the second reading. We
Professor
won't be
Lopez,
voting
can I
on
just
this
say-
today. But yes, Professor Cook. Mhm.
I'm not against this at all. And if the data is there, I fully agree with the statement as long as it's data support. I was just asking where the data was because I'd not seen it. And I'm a scientist. I like seeing data. I fully support this. And I'll be honest, hearing this is absolutely unfair. That people can basically say no, put it on somebody else, and then go, no, that's absolutely wrong. But from science and everything, that's not as because of the way we do it slightly differently. I find I've always wanted to get compensation for students, especially during summer. Yes, because we're not paid for this. Yeah. We're 9 months. And then all suddenly they go, no, you get paid very well for 9 months. But in those 9, we work 12 months. Those summer months, we're working very hard. We deserve something on that. And I'm in full agreement with this resolution. Please don't frame it as I'm not. I think this has got. I just want, do you have the data? Great. If you have the data, I'm all supporting because I could just see that as being a question that could be attacked.
Okay.
Yes on this if I get my choice.
Dr. Cook, I will forward you the data. That is not a problem. We are happy to share that with you.
Pamela, I don't want the data. I just want to make sure the data is there in case somebody
it's there.
attacks it at the administrative level going, no, if you guys have the data, that's great.
No, we have the data. And in our particular school, what's happened to us is faculty lines are not being rehired. They're going elsewhere to the ether. And I personally have 11 graduate doctoral students, 4 of which are not people that I chose. I ended up picking those people up because 2 faculty left and someone had to pick up the students. 3 of them are actually in my area of expertise. 1 is in a side area of my expertise. So we've got other faculty that have, we had a faculty leave recently that had 20 students that had doctoral students that had to be absorbed in our dwindling number of faculty in the School of Education. And so this is also a big problem. And we've been told that it is this trend of disappearing lines is not going to change. That, you know, the lines will continue to go to other schools in our college. So there is no help for us at the college level in terms of the School of Ed. And I'm living proof of it. In fact, I've turned down in the last 3 months 4 doctoral students who have contacted me to work with me. And I refuse to take on any more students because of the situation that I'm faced with, that I'm living in my personal situation. I'd like to recognize Joy Blanchard. I believe she has.
Well, let's limit our discussion to questions.
Oh, sorry.
Comments. Are there additional questions or comments specific to the resolution? Professor King, do you have a question?
Sorry for the background noise. When you take on students, are you just accepting every student that applies to your programs? Is that why you have so many students for each faculty?
No, ma'am, we didn't. Most of us didn't accept, like the 4, I accepted the ones that I wanted that made up the other 7 students that I have. They're all well qualified. The 3 that I have, actually 4 that I have from other professors who've left, I had no hand in accepting those people.
Okay.
So what are we going to do? Tell them that they have to go somewhere else and finish? So, and this has been a constant problem. We've lost 15 faculty in the School of Ed over the last 12 years.
Every person that I have inherited from someone, and they have all been men that I've inherited from, and they have either told students that they can no longer serve as chair because they're too busy, or they have too many obligations, or they have left the school.
Okay. So we have one friendly amendment. Are there other questions or comments about the content of the resolution?
I have one comment.
Okay.
So I don't want to make this more complicated, but we have undergraduate courses that are called independent research in the biological sciences. It's number 3999. And students can take this for 3 credits, and it's called independent research. And these students can sign up for this in the summer, but there's no compensation if you accept these students.
Okay. Is that a suggestion for a friendly amendment?
No.
I personally think if you are in charge of an independent research project, particularly in the summer, but for me, all year long, I don't want to teach overload. I've got too much on my plate as it is. I think we ought to be compensated. The university is getting the money from that, and students getting our expertise and time. And I think it's a fair exchange to be compensated for it.
And one other thing, I did not put an amendment on it. I just wanted to make sure I have no amendment. If the data is there, I fully agree with this. No amendment at all.
I think the friendly amendment was to add the honors college or honors project.
Yeah.
So perhaps we can add in undergraduate research courses, independent study courses as well to that friendly amendment.
Yes, I think,
Would that be okay?
the friendly amendment was to add those courses. And I guess, Professor Blanchard, do you want to add the independent study courses as well?
I would, but I would prefer not to limit it to biological sciences. I am sure there are others.
Yeah. So
Graduate independent study.
So
and we have in engineering as well.
Yeah.
We have many independent courses.
So we'll just add independent research courses at the undergraduate level. Would that language be suitable?
There are also them at the graduate level too.
Yeah. Okay. Are there additional comments or questions again about the content of the resolution? Okay, well, there are those friendly amendments to be added, and mostly to the courses that are included in the resolution. All right, this is the first reading, so it will be carried over to the first meeting in August. And then that would probably be best because there needs to be some amending and probably a quick reread. But it's up to the Senate. If someone can type up the amendments or the amended resolution, and there is a motion to forgo the second reading and vote on it today, we can.
I guess maybe I do have a comment. I definitely support this very much. I just, I'm thinking that this probably will have to be thought out quite carefully about how it's at some level about how it's going to fit into the payment structure at LSU, because say in my department in mathematics, there are so many of us who do independent studies with students all the time and aren't compensated. And I know for sure that it would completely break the department if we had to pay everybody. So there has to be something going on that where the money has to come from somewhere. It's not as simple as saying, oh, we need compensation, do it. And I know that that's going to, I'm pretty sure that, that's going to be a difficulty. And I don't know, I mean, I'm not saying I have an answer, okay? I absolutely agree with what is going on here. That, I mean, I have, I mean, the summers when I don't have a grant, I'm doing research, I'm working with graduate students, undergraduate students, all summer long, right? No payment, and this is I'm used to it, right? But I never like it. So I agree, but I know that it's going to be a difficulty financially, and I don't know. I don't really know how to work it out. Think about it.
Agree. We don't necessarily decide on, well, we don't decide on the implementation. However, the faculty senate and the executive committee and standing committees will work with the administration and pass it through the faculty senate. That is the standard.
But maybe really to think about when it's presented, that we understand what the issues are there.
Well, I think if personally, I am not at a pay grade where these decisions are made. Those people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars more than I do currently. And that's their concern to figure out how to redistribute that money. What I know is that the money comes to LSU and goes elsewhere. And so they can figure it out. If we don't move forward in some way, we're going to continue to run these courses and all the independent studies.
We do need.
Okay, well, unless I hear otherwise, we will ask Professor Blanchard and her team to make the amendments and present it, have the second reading at the first meeting in August. Thank you very much. Great discussion. I know the next resolution, the authors of the next resolution are anxious to get started, and we do have to get through our elections today. So next up, the resolution 21-05. And will it be Professor Houston or Basayev who will be reading?
It's gonna be me, Inessa Basayev, and I'd like to read. Thank you so much. And Susanna has given me permission to share my screen, which I'll do in a minute with the resolution. But before I do so, I'd like to read a very brief statement. The resolution that I'm sponsoring with my colleague, Tara Houston, from the College of Music and Dramatic Arts, is supported by 140 faculty members across our campus. As Jane Cassidy has made clear earlier in this meeting, our students' safety comes first. Resolution 2105 also prioritizes student safety by requiring students to be fully vaccinated for COVID-19 prior to the start of fall 2021. Given that LSU is planning on a return to face-to-face instruction in the fall, including for large classes, this resolution is more important than ever. We are here to ensure that the return to campus in the fall is safe for every member of the LSU community. More than 60 colleges and universities around the country have already created COVID-19 vaccination requirements for their campuses. The list includes both private and public universities, including Rutgers, part of the State University of New Jersey. More institutions join this reasonable and responsible movement every day. We ask the Faculty Senate to support this resolution, which adds the COVID-19 vaccination to the vaccinations that are already mandated in PS 72. We'd like LSU to be the leader in public health and safety on all fronts. The safety of our students comes first, and only when their safety is prioritized, we can continue to do what we do best, engage in teaching, scholarship, and creative activities. I'm now going to share my screen and read the resolution.
Good.
Can you see my screen? Okay. So this is resolution 2105, a call to add COVID-19 vaccination as a requirement to the existing list of mandatory immunizations at LSU, sponsored by Inessa Basayev and Tara Houston. Whereas LSU has no current policy requiring COVID-19 vaccination for a safe return to campus, and whereas medical ethicists and researchers from the University of Pennsylvania have argued that vaccinations for students wishing to participate in an in-person classes should be mandatory. And whereas a growing number of universities across the country, including Duke, Rutgers, Notre Dame, Brown, and Cornell, are requiring COVID-19 vaccination to safely return to campus in the fall. And whereas LSU has already begun administering COVID-19 vaccines to faculty, staff, and students through events held on campus. And whereas LSU already has Policy Statement 72, immunization policy, which requires students to be immunized for measles, mumps, rubella, tetanus, diphtheria, meningitis, and in some cases screened for tuberculosis. And whereas numerous members of the LSU faculty have already expressed support for a requirement that all students who are eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine be vaccinated in order to participate in on-campus classes and events beginning in the fall of 2021. Therefore, the LSU Faculty Senate requests that PS 72 be revised to require COVID-19 vaccinations for all eligible students wishing to enroll in in-person classes or other events on campus, or implement a similar requirement via another administrative policy or procedure.
This resolution into discussion.
First and a second.
Okay. The resolution is open for discussion.
I want to say that I completely agree with this. I'm unwilling to get into a room where my 35 students are not vaccinated, with the circulation of air in the room undetermined. Nobody has figured this out. And so I think it's really important that all these students be vaccinated. And these other major universities have already done this. So I 100% support this.
Okay. All right. Professor Henninger, and I think there's someone else with their hand up as well. Professor Henninger.
Hi, thank you. Would you accept a friendly amendment in the therefore clause that says upon final approval by the FDA, permanent approval of the, I don't know how you say it, but the legal issue, as it was explained to me via somebody who would talk to the council, is that it's still on provisional status. But I think it'll be removed from provisional status almost immediately.
There was actually a recent article, which I'll share in a chat in just a second, in USA Today just yesterday, that CDC has superseded FDA and said that states and any employers can require COVID-19 vaccinations, and so just wanted to put it out there. I'll share the article in just a second.
Yeah, yes, I agree. The information that at least some of us have received is that it's not a requirement to require. It doesn't have to have final FDA approval.
And Katie, the FDA is just too slow. The evidence is in there already.
We'll definitely need some clarity on that. So I'm not sure if you want, well, it's up to you whether or not you want to add that, but I'm not sure it's required.
I would.
Yes, Professor Feldman, and then I think Professor Chen. Yeah, okay, Professor Feldman.
Yes. So I'm Meredith Feldman, and I'm a representative of HSS. I received 82 emails about this resolution, 76 from faculty in support, 3 from graduate assistants in support, and 3 from faculty against. So I think it's fair to say HSS is pretty overwhelmingly in favor of it. And I'd like to make 5 points. Start with the one to address what we just said. First, it is simply false that FDA emergency use authorization for the vaccine somehow prevents the requiring of the vaccination. Although the FDA does not mandate vaccinations, the CDC has said a state government or employer can require the shots. As the resolution notes, many colleges are requiring them, and it is important to note that LSU already relies on medical techniques approved via the FDA's emergency authorization in the form of coronavirus testing. Point number 2, LSU's declaration that fall 2021 will run on the same procedures as fall 2019, and that it will not mandate vaccination will create a dangerous situation. Some members of the campus may be medically precluded from receiving the vaccination and thus reliant on all of us around them being vaccinated. In addition, a large cohort of unvaccinated students has the potential to be severely disruptive to learning. What if there's an outbreak on campus that requires them to remain out of class for extended periods of time? Will faculty in face-to-face classes be required to provide recordings or remote access? This seems like a situation that'll once again impose a great deal of work on us instructors. Point 3, the failure to mandate COVID vaccinations means LSU joins the race between the virus and vaccination and on the virus's side. As everyone should know, the COVID variant called B.1.1.7, first identified in Britain, is now the most common source of new infections in the US, is fueling the spread of the virus in Europe. It's highly contagious, it's more lethal, and it's hospitalizing large numbers of formerly healthy young people. 2 other variants are cause for concern: variant B.1.351, first detected in South Africa, and variant P.1, first identified in Brazil, both of which have been proven to be adept at dodging vaccine antibodies. Fortunately, the vaccines we now hold are holding firm against these variants, and breakthrough cases, as they call instances of vaccinated individuals contracting COVID, remain very rare. But if vaccination rates remain low, as they are in Louisiana, and if COVID cases continue to spread, more lethal, more contagious, antibody dodging variants will continue to evolve. By not requiring vaccinations, LSU is aiding that evolution and advancing us closer to a nightmare scenario where the virus outruns the vaccines. Point 4, President Galligan's broadcast emails and comments in the press regarding a vaccine mandate indicate that his hands are tied by the Louisiana Department of Health, which has not issued a vaccination mandate. It is not clear that this claim is true. For example, the Louisiana Department of Health doesn't mandate state-level immunization for meningitis, but LSU does. Is LSU statutorily obligated to receive authorization from LDH before requiring a COVID vaccine? If so, which statute requires this? If LSU is following LDH guidance, what happens if the governor removes the mask mandate sometime this summer? Will LSU feel they must remove the mask mandate in classrooms that are at 100% capacity with unvaccinated students? Moreover, Mr. Galligan is the president of the principal university system in the state and chancellor of the flagship campus with over 34,000 students. Does he expect us to believe that he would have no influence with the LDH should he approach them and request the ability to mandate the vaccine in the name of public health? Thank you. I've drawn these comments from my more than 70 colleagues who have been writing me.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Feldman. All right. Are there additional comments? I see, I think Professor Del Piero has suggested to add influenza vaccine to the resolution. Do you want to chime in, Professor Del Piero?
Well, just to avoid a winter double whammy, we all know that influenza has been killing people without making to the news, not as much as COVID. So I think this would be an important detail, and I pretty much subscribe completely the well described concern from Professor Feldman. In fact, after my comment on vaccination, there is also a comment about emphasizing the new variants. Maybe not everybody is aware that at the moment there are some new variants in Louisiana and the rest of the United States. They're rampant in Europe, other will be coming, and most likely the vaccine company will be working to insert these new variants in the new vaccines. So this would be also, if added to the resolution, would make our concerns, real danger, more explicit. So, but I think adding flu wouldn't remove from COVID the importance of the coronavirus, and probably pretty much would also underline how concerned we are in general about viral diseases hitting our community.
Okay, so are you requesting an amendment to the resolution? I think that is.
I suggest to add influenza orthomyxovirus.
Well, that is a substantive change, so we will have to have a motion and a vote on it. Do you wish to go forward with that?
I'm wondering if that takes away from the purpose of this very resolution. I think COVID-19 vaccination supersedes all of that. Maybe we can propose another separate resolution at a later time, because this is far more urgent at the moment. And I would really like for us to...
I understand your point. From a medical point of view, vaccinating against COVID only would be unwise, but I see your point. I see your point, which is about the success of the of your resolution, which is I absolutely support. So it's I see your point. So it's fine. It's fine for me.
Right. Okay. So a substantive.
Let's keep it focused on coronavirus.
Okay.
From a medical point of view, it would be debatable, but I see the need to keep the focus on the coronavirus.
Okay. There was also a question about whether or not Professor Feldman's comments could be added to the resolution. I suggest that when this goes forward to the administration by the standing committees, probably the FSEC, in conjunction with some other senators, obviously the authors of the resolution, I suggest that if Senator Feldman is willing to share that information, that it go with the resolution rather than adding it to the resolution. If that's okay.
If you're willing, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I think it can certainly be go forward with it. Okay, Professor, we never did get to poor Professor Ken. Do you still have your hand raised? All right, Professor Cook, and then Professor Tehran.
Okay, I support this, especially the fact that myself, I got vaccinated outside the LSU system completely. I had to go by myself into the vaccine lines and everything. And I was very disappointed with the fact that we did not get put higher up as frontline workers. LSU did not separate that out. And I honestly, we'd almost have a vote of no confidence in the LSU administration on that. There was no protection of faculty. And I can sort of see this coming up, especially with the variants. So I agree with this resolution. I agree with also what Professor Doran said. I think we really need to vote on this today to have any impact. And we should also put another one about variants. Variants are coming down the line, as is pointed out, and we need to draw the line now, or else we're just going to go teach, go teach, go teach. And if we get sick, we have to take sick leave. And
okay, all right. Professor Tehran?
Yeah, I wanted to thank Professors Bazayev and Houston for the excellent work they've done on this, and Professor Feldman for her comments. Just a few points I wanted to follow up with that seem relevant. First, LSU is already scheduling classes at 100% of classroom capacity. So it is obvious that the intention is that they're going to have every seat filled to the extent that they can, but it is not clear that they're going to maintain the current mitigation measures. And so that, I think, only enforces the need for the vaccine requirement. Also, just to emphasize the point that the president does in fact have the authority to do this, so far as those of us who have looked into this can tell. The last sentence of the policy statement 72 expressly says that the president shall have the authority to change the definition of adequate immunization to conform to current state law and to current public health recommendations. So it is right in the policy statement that the president is the one who is authorized to make that change. And quickly went to the Louisiana legislature website, and there's only a handful of legislation pertaining to this, one of which is revised statute 17, section 170.1. And that is immunizations of persons registering for courses at post-secondary education and institutions requirements. The only requirement there is actually for meningococcus disease. So we already go beyond what is statutorily required. So it does not seem like we'd be making this up out of whole cloth to add this COVID-19 requirement to the current policy statement. And if the administration has different information than that, I would recommend that they make that known to help substantiate why they don't believe they have this authority. As Professor Veldman said, there's a way they can seek this authority if they so choose. And if this is really conditional on, or their objection is really conditional on the emergency use authorization, as has been suggested, I suggest we vote on this today and then seek that the administration commit to making this a requirement as soon as the vaccines have received full authorization from the FDA, which hopefully will be in the relatively near future. Otherwise, if they maintain their objection to requiring a COVID vaccine, I would suggest that they really are going to have to make an effort to the faculty to substantiate the basis of their objections and engage in a dialogue on how they're going to continue to mitigate COVID, because simply assuming we can return to operations as normal and wave our hand and COVID is no longer going to be a problem, I think is a problem for the faculty.
Okay, we're juggling several systems here, three actually. I do want to put forth, there is a motion on the floor to vote on the resolution. To take, now I think the motion should be to forgo the second reading and vote on the resolution today. I believe there's already a first and a second. Is there anyone opposed?
Can we launch the poll?
Yeah, okay, yes, poll, launch the poll.
You should be able to vote.
Okay, vote. Now you are voting on whether or not to forgo the second reading. Okay, can you call the numbers, please?
Yep, 48 to 0. So yes, motion passes.
Okay.
So
right. All right. Now, is there a motion to approve resolution 21-05, a call to add COVID-19 vaccination as a requirement to the existing list of mandatory immunizations at LSU?
So moved.
Okay. All right. You got
Voting.
got it? Okay, and a vote.
Susanna, I think I can't vote because I'm a co-host.
Okay, you can message me your vote.
All right, great.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I know. It's like a three-ring circus. I will be very glad to be back in person. And happy to wear my mask while doing so. All right.
Waiting for her to.
Oh, all right.
Okay. 52 to 1 to 0. So
Okay.
it passes.
52 in favor, 1 against, and 1 abstention.
Yes.
All right. The resolution passes. All right. We're playing a bit of topsy-turvy with our agenda today. Sorry about that. So now, if there are no objections, we will move to the elections. I remind you, we must have a quorum for this. So we want to get the elections completed before, well, we lose quorum. All right. We're all very busy and have other jobs. All right. So that said, is there any objection? All right. I will. Professor Henninger was the chair of the nominating committee before. However, I do want to thank all of our senators, those that are rotating off. Thank you very much. You have my sincerest gratitude for your service. I believe service on faculty senate should always be, well, recognized at the very least, and ranked, should be actually ranked very highly among our service productivity, I guess, our service. All right, so with that, I cede the floor to you.
Hi, thank you very much. I would also like to acknowledge and thank the members of the nominating committee, who are Professors Tracy Quirk, Brandy Conrad, David Dalsini, and Stephen Shipman. it was an honor to serve on this and to speak with the various faculty senators who were willing to run. And I would only add one word about the many who were not able to run. And I found this particularly the case and disturbing because I am from the College of HSS, Humanities and Social Sciences. And we had a lot more trouble recruiting people to run from those schools, especially women and people of color, because of the aforementioned oversubscription of their time on various committees, doctoral and otherwise. So that sort of systemic issue aside, I am really very pleased with our candidates and grateful for their willingness to stand for election. So our first election is for president, I believe, and Susanna or somebody please correct me if I do something wrong here, because I have not done this before. And we have one candidate for the position of president, and that is our current president, Professor Mandy Lopez.
You should ask for nominations from the floor.
Oh, thank you. Yes, are there any nominations from the floor?
Okay.
None heard. Are we, Susanna, are we supposed to have Dr. Lopez read or speak at all, or do we move to a vote?
I call for the unanimous approval of Dr. Mandy Lopez as president.
I second.
Okay. Then any discussion, or shall we move to a vote?
All right, I'll launch the poll. Yes, you can turn around and not watch. Actually, you can't see it anyway. All right, it looks like people are just about finished. Congratulations, 50-2.
All right, thank you very much.
Wonderful, congratulations. Moving along to the vice presidency, we have one candidate on the ballot, was Professor Joan King. And do we have any other nominations from the floor today? None heard. Do we have a motion to move to a vote?
Blanchard, a second? Lane, okay. All right. You can go ahead and vote. Okay, congratulations, 51-1.
Congratulations.
Right. Congratulations, Vice President King.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving along to the position of secretary, we have two candidates for this position, Dr. Fabio Del Piero and Dr. Marwa Hassan. Do we have any other candidates from the floor? Now, in this case, Susanna, do the candidates have an opportunity to speak, or do we just go from the published statements that we have already?
They're welcome to make a brief statement if they wish.
Would either of the candidates care to make a statement?
Sure. Hello, everyone. As you know, my name is Marwa Hassan. I'm from the College of Engineering. I stand before you again for the third time running for the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. From all the service committees that I've done in my life, this is one that I cherish very highly because it allows us as faculty to have a voice It helps us in governing, and I couldn't be prouder from serving with all of you and with great colleagues on the executive committee itself. The rest of my bio is already published in the in the document, so I'm not going to go there. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Hello, everybody. Great to see you again. And Fabio Del Piero, professor of pathology in the vet school. That would be my third year as a secretary, and I'm running for re-election. And I would like to emphasize that I would like to serve to complete these 3 years of hard work and constant participation. I have a meeting attendance to close to 100%. And I think my work ethics years in the LSU Senate, almost 6 to 7 years, the wide international experience, the exposure to ethnicities, cultures, and the knowledge in medicine, pandemics, and biology, and animal and human diseases and health makes me again an ideal candidate for this position. So thank you very much for your attention, time consideration, and previous positive voting.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to move this ballot to a vote?
So moved.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, Marwa Hassan, 32, Fabio Del Piero, 20, and 2 abstentions.
Okay. Congratulations, Professor Hassan, and thank you very much for your service over the years, Professor Del Piero.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you and congratulations. All right, in the final round, we have members at large. We elect 2 members at large during this meeting, and then a 3rd member at large at the first meeting of the Faculty Senate in the fall from amongst the new senators. So we have several candidates this time, and those include Professor Bazayev. Please forgive me if I am, as I'm sure I will, mispronouncing names. From the School of Music, College of Music and Dramatic Arts. We have Professor Robert Cook, Professor of Chemistry from the College of Science. I'm sorry?
Oh no, continue please. Sorry about that.
This is a question actually, Professor Hassan, now that you are going to be the secretary, are you on this ballot?
No, she is not eligible as a member at large.
Okay, great.
Yes, thank you for your question.
Then we will move past that to Professor Roger Lane, professor in the College of Science of Molecular Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. Professor Racheal Orozco, professor of Spanish and Linguistics in the Humanities and Social Sciences College. I'm hearing weird noises.
Everyone, please mute.
I'm hoping I'm allowed to unmute.
Yeah.
And then we have Professor Julie Wright Rollins, an instructor in the School of Education, the College of Human Sciences and Education. And I believe that is the number of candidates on the ballot so far. Do we have any nominations from the floor for member at large?
Okay.
I don't hear any. So do we have a motion to move this slate of candidates to ballot, and you pick 2?
I move.
Okay.
Second.
All right, please vote for 2. You should be able to vote for more than one.
Are there any statements?
Oh, that's a good point. Should we have the opportunity to make statements? Seems like that would be good.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the polling if someone would like to speak, and then I'll relaunch it.
I'll make a statement if my colleagues would too. I don't want to stand out as the only one making a statement. If I may, I'm Inessa Bazaev. I'm Pology Manship Associate Professor and Head of the Music Theory area at the College of Music and Dramatic Arts, and I've been here a dozen years, since 2009. I think I'm well positioned for this particular position at the executive committee because my involvement across university activities is vast and reaches beyond music and dramatic arts. I was on the committee that founded and established the new School for Collaborative Academic Programs, or ASCAP. And I currently serve on the boards of Center for Collaborative Knowledge and Ogden Honors College. Aside from my music theory classes, I specialize in Russian and Soviet music and the avant-garde. I've taught interdisciplinary courses on music and art and music and politics at the Ogden College. And most recently, I have joined my colleagues in HSS, Sue Marchand and Aaron Sheehan-Dean, to co-organize the webinar series Uncertainty Across the Arts and Sciences, where we invited distinguished LSU faculty to speak about various degrees of uncertainty in their fields, in their respective fields, especially during COVID. And I moderated one of those sessions. You can see that collaboration is at the center of what I do, and I think it positions me quite well for Faculty Senate's Executive Committee. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I see that Professor Cook has offered his written statement. Everyone has these written statements, and so certainly, would anybody else like to say a few words? Yes, Julie Wright, Professor Wright.
Thank you. I will say that I have really enjoyed representing the faculty this past year. I went in and I did not understand, I thought it was just going to be our weekly meetings. I learned that representing the faculty does take a lot of commitment. It's in helping interview for deans of new colleges. It's I have a better understanding of how we need to represent the faculty and how we need to get representation out there with this upcoming year. I have enjoyed serving on the Faculty Senate Executive Council, as I still enjoy my other campus involvements. And that's about it.
I'm not seeing other hands. Oh, Professor Lane.
Okay, so I was asked by a letter to actually stand for this position. I don't run for things, but so I'll just say that I'm a Jurassic member of the Department of Biological Sciences. and my main input to the Faculty Senate has been that I have been the chair and a member of the Benefits Advisory Committee to the Senate for about 10 years. My main effort is to try to increase the benefits, the retirement benefits of LSU, which are at the lowest level in all the SEC schools. And so if I'm on this committee, my major effort will be to work on the benefits situation for LSU.
Dr. Roscoe.
Thank you. I have been at LSU since 2007. I'm a professor of Spanish and linguistics. I am the director of the interdisciplinary linguistics program, and I'm also the chair of World Languages and Cultures. And I would love to be part of the executive committee because I would like to fight for HSS and for the whole university. One of my goals is to bring to the attention, which they already know, but emphasize.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Continue.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. My main goal would be to fight for better faculty compensation. We are too poorly compensated and we work too hard not to be compensated the way that we deserve. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Call the question.
Shall we move to a vote?
Okay. Relaunch. Okay. Any other votes? Pretty close. We have a tie.
Okay, we have a tie. Has everyone voted? All right. So I think the procedure is to then have a runoff between the two that are tied.
Okay.
Can you create that, Paul?
Yes, it might just take me a minute.
Okay. All right. So can you give us the names of?
Dr. Bazayev,
Okay.
36.
Okay.
And the tied votes is for Professor Cook and Professor Lane.
Okay. All right. Susanna will put together that poll very quickly. In the meantime, congratulations, Professor Basayev, and welcome. Busy summer ahead. All right. So that said, we do need to vote also on the Budget and Planning Advisory Committee. Oh, right. Not to displace you, Professor Henninger. We'll get that together and then I'll hand it back over to you. Just trying to roll through the day. All right. We do need to vote for 3 members of the Budget and Planning Advisory Committee. Ms. Knoll has that poll ready. So if you won't mind to go ahead and vote on 3. We have some excellent nominees. You can see their statements there. Please vote on 3 individuals for the Budget and Planning Advisory Committee. And as soon as we're finished with that, we'll move on to the Adjudication Committee, where you need to vote for 2 members. And again, you should have received their statements. All right, so have we?
Doesn't look like we can select 3 for the.
Yeah, it's not working for 3.
Okay. Just 1 second, please.
Poor Ms. Knoll. I'm telling you, she does a lot.
Yeah, she's our backbone.
Yeah, I'll have to relaunch it, so it's going to take me a minute. Do you want to move to the adjudication committee?
Okay, we're moving on to the adjudication committee. Vote for 2.
All right, hold on. For some reason, it's defaulted everything back to single choice, which is why it's.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, just tell me when you're ready.
All right.
It's okay, just let us know when you're ready.
You just love Zoom. Okay, this one should work.
Okay, which one is this?
This is the adjudication committee.
Okay, adjudication committee, vote for 2. Can everyone see it? Okay.
Okay, we can do this one next. We can do the
Which one
runoff
is it?
next after that, and then I'll have to redo the entire poll for the budget committee. That's great.
Okay, so which one did we just do? The adjudication. All right, and?
All right, Dr. Del Piero.
Okay, congratulations, Dr. Del Piero, and?
Thank you.
And Professor Pike. Pamela Pike.
Oh, and Professor Pike. All right, and then we are launching now. Which one?
Give me 1 second. I have to redo the poll.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So it's going to take me a minute.
You have to redo the whole poll?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
Okay. Can you do the runoff first?
Yes.
Why don't we do that? Okay.
Good.
Okay. Back to you, Professor Henninger. We're doing the runoff. Yeah.
Okay.
Vote for 1. Is it launched?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Give it just a minute. People are still voting. All right, Roger Lane.
Congratulations, Professor.
Hey.
And thank you, Professor Shipman, for your long-standing service on the Faculty Senate.
You're welcome.
Okay, and we're just about at our last poll.
Okay.
And I want to thank the nominating committee and again, our retiring senators. Again, I always advocate for extra points for service, for Faculty Senate service, especially serving on standing committees. It is a huge commitment, and we appreciate that. I think we've got a mute thing.
Yes.
Yep.
Got it.
Okay.
Say thank you again to the committee and to all the candidates who agreed to stand for election. These are really important jobs and they are a lot of work. And I really appreciate everyone who stepped up to volunteer for that. I'll miss the Senate.
Okay, ready for the budget and planning.
All right.
Okay.
Budget and planning coming your way.
Yes, it should be you vote for 3.
Okay. Vote for 3. Okay, and the issue has been raised that there needed to be an abstention on the runoff. Well,
Feel free to message me
If you wish to abstain from the runoff, please message Ms. Knoll privately.
Yes, please, and my apologies. Okay, just another minute. People are still voting.
No worries.
Mhm.
And I must commend Ms. Knoll. I think she's off camera. She always sees to that. Makes me stand here by my little self. But she has worked, she attends all the committee meetings, she keeps all the minutes, she keeps everything. She reaches out to faculty policy committee, college policy committees. She does all the elections, reaches out to ask after the census, figures out the census and reaches out to the senators. So if we might have a round of applause, however you want to do it, for Ms. Knoll, who has been an absolute backbone and certainly my right and left hands over the last year. She really is.
I recommend a raise for Susanna Knoll.
That'd be fabulous.
Done.
And again, if there are any abstentions, please message me privately.
Okay, is it launched?
Yes. Just, I think everyone's voted.
Thank you for your patience. Okay. Yeah.
Looks like we have Professor Sylvester.
Okay, congratulations, Professor Sylvester.
Professor King.
Professor King.
And Professor Mason.
And Professor Mason. Thank you all, each and every one, for your service. And for those rotating off, I can't thank you enough. We've activated all the committees. The committees have been very, very active and engaged. And thank you. It's made a huge difference, I think, for our LSU faculty overall. All right, now we have come to a decision point. We do have left on our agenda the committee reports. I would like, if everyone can stay just a few minutes over, I would very much like to recognize the committees for the work they've done. So if you'll be so kind to share with us a little bit of your time, a little bit more of your time, I'd like to give the committee chairs a chance to present their reports. Is there any, is this acceptable? Okay. Well, let's carry on. We will also submit them in writing. Okay, so first up, admission standards and honors. Professor Williams.
She has another meeting, so she had to step away.
All right, she has stepped away and will be submitting those in writing. Benefits, Professor Rouse.
I'm here. I submitted something in writing. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I submitted something in writing, but I'm just going to summarize what we've talked about. And primarily, this has been a, if you will, a learning year for us, or investigating, trying to find more information. My second year on the committee, and some of the people like Roger have been on it, as he said, for since the Jurassic age, I guess. But what we've concentrated on is trying to discuss the optional retirement program and the fact that the state / LSU is not contributing what they're supposed to, and faculty resolution about setting up a legal defense fund. What we've been working on is trying to figure out how to do it. We've had a discussion with some people in the business school who supposedly have expertise in that. And what we were told was that we'd have to set up a nonprofit. And the big question is, who's going to set up the nonprofit? How's it going to be organized and so forth? So we haven't figured that out yet. I hope maybe we can come up with a resolution. Either we have one more meeting this year, next week, and we'll pick it up next year, I guess. We've also been discussing the recent faculty senate resolutions, particularly the ones associated, obviously, with benefits. And we've been talking to Clay Jones, who's the relatively new, 8 months in, head of human resource management. And we've gotten him to agree to be part of come to all of the meetings as a representative of the administration, because basically what we do is what this committee talks about is really human resource management. So he's been giving us information about what HR can do and what HR can't do. And, we had a resolution, last year before last, about pregnancy for dependents. And it turns out that LSU can't do anything about that through the, LSU First, for example. That's something that the state controls through the Office of Group Benefits. And we've been talking about the health insurance and talking to Chantel Baker, who's the person in HR that really is working with the LSU First, trying to get it organized, get it out for bids. And we found out that Clay told us that we've got one of the best health insurance programs in the at least for people who live locally, because of the local what am I trying to say? The networks, the local networks. If you're outside the local network and you have some problems that we've had, and there's nothing we can do about it. At least LSU First can't do about it, because the people that they work with, WebMD, have chosen people that they work with. What else? So that's about it. Basically, it's a learning period. We've talking to Clay Jones, and he's agreed that he would be, either he or a representative from HR will be on the committee. As Professor Mandy Lopez said, we've submitted a written report that can be available, that you can see. Any questions? Comments?
All right, thank you, Professor Rouse. Thank you very much. I know that the committees, we've all been in sort of a bit of a turmoil, given that we had committees activated in elections and mid-year and so on. So we're just getting back on cycle, and I appreciate everyone's patience with that. All right, courses and curricula, Professor Hopkins.
Thank you. I also prepared a short written report, which will be available. I have sent it to Susanna. I'll just talk about it briefly. I had put some background here for those of you who don't know what courses and curricula is all about. I'm not going to go over it in detail. Basically, what we do is approve proposals and curricula. We work with academic affairs and the registrar. The guidance that we use is basically PS 45, but also we look at the guidance that the faculty handbook provides us, which was items decided by the faculty senate. And the background thinking of the committee is basically that we are making sure that new proposals are submitted in such a way so that all the documentation lines up with expectations for SACS, so that we have university documents that are well structured. If we were ever audited to look at our courses, we would be proud of the courses that we have at LSU. This year was really quite easy for us for the most part, because the number of proposals that we had to look through is about half of what it's been in the past. Most of the faculty have been fighting to get through the semester rather than worrying about what new programs they're going to put in place. So we haven't had quite as much work as we have in the past. But still, I would say we meet bi-weekly. It takes me a minimum of 2 hours to prepare for each meeting. In a normal semester, it might be 4 to 5 hours to go over all of the proposals in detail. The committee is blessed to have a large number of faculty that represent all of the departments across the campus who are really diligent in going through the proposals in great detail to look for any problems that might be presented with them and getting everything cleaned up. We try to do our best to really think about how do we handle every decision that we have to make so that it is always in the best interest of the university and the students of LSU. And that's been pretty much our motto from the beginning in the way that we work. We've been involved this year with a couple of opinions from faculty that we supplied to the Faculty Senate about new policies for dropping and withdrawals that were asked because of the pandemic. And I guess the other things we've been doing is trying to streamline certain policy changes that involve a large percentage of the campus to do it in the way that impacts the campus in the least amount so that it's not too much undue burden on the faculty who are already overworked to get these changes put through. We've been working with academic affairs this year to think about how we can put a new policy in place to handle technical standards that departments need to create that will ask for waivers of certain disability accommodations or certain accommodations. So we've been working with ODS and the LSU legal team to figure out how all of that will happen. And once we get all of that decided, we will be coming back to the Faculty Senate to ask for new policy changes in PS 45 to discuss how new forms will be presented and so on. So we will be back in touch with you later in the year. So I think that's enough for my report on courses and curricula.
Thank you very much, Professor Hopkins. I know that the Courses and Curricular Committee is absolutely vital to our faculty governance for faculty deciding educational policy at our LSU. Thank you for your extraordinary service as well and the additional requests that were imposed upon you due to the pandemic and other disruptions. All right, next up, Library Committee, Professor Hochman.
Okay, hello everybody. Here's my report for the Library Advisory Committee. In the fall of 2020, the officers were Dr. Gula Hachman, that's me, I was the chair, and Tracy Quirk as vice chair during the elections. We confirmed both of these. Our activities have touched on 3 areas of concern: open access, publishing, research support, and funding of library maintenance. Very briefly on open access publishing, in close cooperation with copyright specialist Darcy Olson, the committee educated itself and conducted research on the need and use of an open access publishing policy for LSU. The committee's collaborative efforts resulted in Resolution 2101, formation of ad hoc committee to develop a comprehensive framework for open access publishing at LSU, which the Faculty Senate voted to adopt. As of yet, we have not received any notification with regard to its implementation. Research support. Now, the committee has been working to show which negative impacts years of cuts to the library budget have at LSU. The committee conducted a small-scale sample study among faculty in 2 humanities departments to illustrate how and where faculty and graduate students in these specific departments lack resources and how the effective researchers developed a series of workaround solutions to compensate for it. The result of this study will be published soon. The committee will contact individual administrators and offices around campus to bring this to their attention. To give a brief impression of the issue, LSU's total library expenses are roughly 60% of the SEC mean, whereas the expenses on books are only 26% of the SEC mean. I'll show you a chart in a moment. In other words, disciplines in the humanities that rely heavily on book publications are disproportionately negatively affected. The committee is working on explaining what the effects of the library funding conditions are on research with particular focus on research in the humanities. So here are the numbers that are received from the Dean of the Library to illustrate this. So you have a ranking of the different SEC schools. And you see we rank very low. Our expenditures are about a quarter of that of Texas A&M, but a little over a tenth when it comes to books and particular monographs, which are of critical importance to scholars in the humanities. And so, so this is the issue that we are trying to address, and we're trying to make it feasible to explain how exactly this affects people on campus. And the third issue we've been working on is funding of library maintenance. The committee cooperated with the Dean of Libraries to address the challenges that the poor physical condition of the Middleton Library poses. A growing book collection and limited availability of space created hard to solve problems, especially leakage through the roof has significantly impacted and limited the fourth floor stacks. In the long term, the LSU master plan envisions a new library building in a different location, but this new building is not financed or approved at this point. Nevertheless, Middleton Library continues to be in use and requires short-term solutions. We're happy to report that the Dean of the Library recently received assurance from Facility Services that the roof will be fixed to last for approximately another 10 years. In conclusion, we would like to bring to the attention to the Faculty Senate the situation that both the collection at the LSU libraries as well as the building maintenance have been for a long time heavily underfunded, and that the problems caused by this are becoming more and more pressing to the point where we can no longer ignore them. As we are planning the next improvements to the building infrastructure on campus and make decisions about the allocation of resources, the committee wants to highlight the following. The University Library is the one place and resource center that every single department and all parts of the LSU community, faculty, students, and staff alike, have to use on a regular basis in order to conduct their work and to fulfill the mission that brings us together to bring innovative research and excellent education to Louisiana and to help students launch careers that have an impact on the world. If we want to continue to be able to do this, we cannot afford to underfund the library anymore. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Hoffman. The Library Committee has been very vigorous in drawing attention to our abysmal library resources. We expend less than Auburn. That should mean something. All right, next up is the LSU Press Committee, Professor Costello.
Hi, everyone. I submitted a written report to Susanna as well. I'll just briefly go over the high points there. The committee has met 4 times already this year, and we will meet again in July. Basic role of the committee at each meeting, we provide a final review for projects that have been through the peer review process and determine whether they will receive final approval for publication. As you know, the LSU Press publishes in a wide range of fields with a particular emphasis on history, poetry, literary studies, journalism, and media studies, as well as popular books usually focused on some aspect of Louisiana history or culture. At each meeting, we review a packet that includes readers' reports, authors' responses, editors' reports, and other relevant correspondence on the set of manuscripts that the press proposes to publish. The individual members of the committee review that packet prior to the meeting. We pay particular attention to the integrity of the review process, and we discuss each manuscript and vote on whether to approve it for publication. Over this academic year, we have reviewed and approved about 45 projects with another set of probably a dozen or so to be reviewed this summer. And our plan for the coming year is to continue in its current role. We don't have any major changes planned to the committee structure or its mission. That's it.
Very good. Thank you very much, Professor Costello. I appreciate very much the reports from the committee, again on committee chairs, again on very short notice and during a tumultuous year. Hats off to you for your service and your successful service over this compressed sort of reality that we live in. Now I want to acknowledge Professor Wright and the work of her ad hoc committee. Professor Wright has on the remote teaching standards. Professor Wright has offered to submit this in writing. However, I do want to acknowledge the very hard work of her committee. She has offered to send that out for feedback from the faculty senators. But Professor Wright, given the extent of your hard work and that you presented it at our last meeting, I would like to give you the floor for a few minutes to present the committee's latest document with the remote learning standards. Again, these were requested by both faculty and students, and these were intended to serve as sort of guidelines or suggestions, not enforceable standards. We understand that anything in writing, I understand a lot of the concerns from the faculty senators, anything in writing can potentially be enforced. But again, these are just meant as a template and helpful suggestions. All right, Professor Wright.
Yes, there was, I love the ad hoc committees. I worked with 2 different ones and we had several meetings. They were from different parts of the university, so there was great representation. One of the things I know that it went out in the email today that Sue sent out, we changed it to recommendations. The provost through this pandemic was getting quite a few concerned emails and phone calls from parents and students about basically they said we're paying tuition and we don't feel that we're getting a service that we're paying for. So the recommendations, we really shortened after we got some great feedback from everybody. It's just basically ways that ideas that everybody on the ad hoc came up with to help make that transition that none of us were prepared for, to go from in-person to online. So the new ones are much shorter, and we took everybody's recommendations at heart. And one of the questions was, how would these be enforced? So we did not know that. They are not enforceable, and they will be on the Faculty Senate website also.
All right, and we will distribute those, and the ad hoc committee will take in any additional comments and concerns and suggestions. We'll also share those with the Office of Academic Affairs, again, making it very clear that they're not enforceable, but when requests come to them, they can then share them with faculty.
And one of the interesting things that was brought up in the ad hoc meeting yesterday is some of the things that they listed. They said if you have a grade appeal, even grade appeals during asynchronous or synchronous teaching, that you have to have these things in order to win your grade appeal. So to keep, that in mind.
All right, very good. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership on this ad hoc committee during these crunch times. And I appreciate you had a meeting yesterday in preparation for today. So the buck doesn't stop here. We will get additional feedback for the committee and final approval from the Faculty Senate. That'll be carried over likely because this is our very last meeting. Are there any short questions for Professor Wright? All right. We've had to reschedule on the fly. We do have some things already scheduled for our next meeting. Am I missing something? Or okay. All right. So thank you for your patience and your endurance in making through this last meeting of the year. Thank you all for your service. Here's to a wonderful summer. I wish you the best during these last few weeks, and a very restful and healthy summer. Don't hesitate to reach out to me over the summer, and thank you all. The meeting is adjourned unless there is someone who wishes to stay on. Bye, guys.